Hello book lovers, it might be December but the weather in Greece still feels like spring, so I thought it fit in to do my July wrap-up. My first read for July was Amy Bloom's Lucky Us. Despite the extremely captivating opening sentence, this book did not deliver. The story takes place in the 1940s and centers around Iris and Eva, two half-sisters who meet in their teens and form a very strong bond that will take them all through adulthood. Unfortunately, I couldn't care less about the characters. They were painfully one-dimensional and, dare I say, unsubstantial. So, no. My second read was The Martian Chronicles by Bradbury. This science fiction short story collection is set in the future and deals with man's colonization of Mars and the consequences it has on both humans and native Martians. The stories are interconnected and range from dreamy and surreal to completely creepy, and I would say that it's a perfect addition to the library of any science fiction fan. After that, I moved on to Niall Williams's 4 Letters of Love. Nicholas's dad abandons his job to become a painter because God told him so. Isabel's brother is disabled after a horrendous fit and she blames herself for it. Two lives taking different roads until one day Nicholas arrives on Isabel's doorstep in search of the last remaining painting of his father's. If you're into magical realism, love to read about the Irish landscape, and believe in miracles and destiny and magic and stuff like that, then congratulations, you've just found your next read. As for my opinion, the writing was beautiful, but I got a little bit bored. Next up was Pnin by Vladimir Nabokov. Pnin was published 1 year before Lolita, and this is the novel that made him popular in the US. Professor Timofey Pnin is an eccentric, funny-looking Russian immigrant teaching at Wendell College. His English is terrible. He's constantly manipulated by his ex-wife, and his colleagues think he's a freak. Despite being a literary favorite, I just couldn't get into it. I'm sorry, don't hate. Then I moved on to Spinster by Kate Bolick, and this was the book that took me out of my reading slump. Kate Bolick, a journalist and cultural critic, examines why she and millions of women choose to remain unmarried. At first I thought it was a memoir, and it is, but it's not just hers. She explains how 5 unconventional women have shaped her way of life, and how spinsterism is not how people interpret it to be. A forsaken old hag in a house full of cats and doily tablecloths. A pretty well-researched book that made me want to know more about a few of her muses that I've never heard about, and that is what I call fascinating. Next up was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams. I can't believe this was my very first Tennessee Williams. I mean, I've seen the films, but I never said, hey, how about reading one of his plays? Shame on me. Anyway, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is about the relationships between the members of Big Daddy Pollitt's family, and especially the one between his son Brick and Brick's wife Maggie. Oh my God. Greed, sexual desire, and sexual depression, lies and deceit. Oh, and a mighty big inheritance to spice things up. Loved it. After that, it was The Gracekeepers by Kirsty, Logan. The Gracekeepers takes place in a dystopian world where the ocean has flooded most of the earth and society is divided into those living on the mainland and those living at sea. In this world, North and Callanish form an unexpected friendship. North is a circus performer with a bulging secret. Callanish is a gracekeeper who performs burials on an isolated island, with a life-threatening one. The writing style is quite lyrical and captivating, and I'm pretty sure that all the magic realism fans out there will tremendously enjoy it. Moving on with Eve of St Agnes by John Keats and Woman Much Missed by Thomas Hardy. The first two of my growing collection of Penguin's little black classics were rather poetic, like literally. John Keats's poems were a bit too much for my unaccustomed, unpoetic nature, and Thomas Hardy's poetry about his late wife Emma was too depressing for my already burdened, capital-controlled state of mind. I didn't hate these, but they didn't do much for me either. Next up is A Spool of Blue Thread by Anne Tyler. This is the story of 3 generations of the Witshank family and also the story of the house that the first generation of Witshanks built. The narrative moves back and forth from the 1950s to the present day, and although rich with numerous characters and events, it's just okay. Everybody was raving about this book and I was so ready to love it, but it fell a bit short. It's not bad, but it's nothing special. My next read was Cheri by Colette. 49-year-old Leah is in a casual relationship with 25-year-old Fred, also known as Cheri. When he is set to marry a rich girl his age, they end the relationship just as casually. But they soon realize that they're actually in love with each other and thus their misery begins. Here's a love story full of passion and depression, sexiness and tenderness, romance and brutal realism. What's not to love? Last but definitely not least, Tibetan Peach Pie by Tom Robbins. This is the Greek imprint that was kindly sent to me by Aiolos Publications, and I would like to thank them for the joy it brought me while reading it. This is a memoir autobiography, but written in such a unique way that actually feels like snapshots taken from the author's rather atypical life. It's fun, hilarious, witty, interesting, vivid, sweet and effortless. It made me so happy. July is out. Thank you for watching and see you soon.